Greek lemon chicken is hands down one of the simplest yet most flavorful dishes of all time. It's always a family favorite, and I think I've perfected it using a few techniques for more flavorful chicken and crispier potatoes. It's a Greek classic that's been around for generations, but more on that later. For now, let's kick things off with the marinade. I'm going to load this up with 6 finely grated cloves of garlic. Then I'm going to grate in a half shallot or about 1 tablespoon. Any color onion will actually work here. Next, I'm going to zest 2 lemons, which will give you about a 1/4 cup of zest. Then, cut those lemons in half and squeeze out all the juice. You'll probably get about 6 tablespoons or so of liquid. A little more or a little less is fine, no problem. I'm next going to add in 2 tablespoons of Dijon mustard, and yes, yellow mustard is totally fine to use as well. Now for some spices and herbs. A half teaspoon of smoked or sweet paprika, 2 teaspoons of dry oregano, and 5 to 6 sprigs of fresh thyme. Now generously season it with coarse salt and freshly cracked pepper. At this stage, we're going to drizzle in a half cup of olive oil while continuing to whisk to emulsify the marinade. And of course, if you want to save some time, just throw everything into a food processor and process it on high until it becomes smooth and completely combined and emulsified like this. Alright, now to thin it out a bit, I'm going to mix in a 1/4 cup of water. This is just to help stretch it out a bit because you'll want as much of it as possible, and I'll explain why later, but first, taste it. It should be extremely intense in flavor. This is the first thing you need to do to ensure a more flavorful chicken. After all, we aren't drinking it straight, we're using it to marinate. And before we do that, let's bring out the chicken. I've got a 3.5 to 4 pound whole roasting chicken. To me, this is way more economical to use, and since my family only really likes breast meat and I like thigh and legs, everybody's happy. Just for the record, dark meat is way better. I said what I said. Okay, now to fabricate this. You can use a chef knife or a boning knife. I prefer to use the latter. First things first, locate the center sternum bone, then we're going to slice down just to the left of it and stay as close to that bone as possible to get as much meat as possible until the breast is released. Now fold the breast back to expose the wing bone. Use your knife to slice in between the joints to separate it from the chicken. Perfect. Next, pop open the thigh to expose the joint that's connected to the body and slice in between while flipping it over and making sure to get that tender on the backside. From there, you simply repeat the exact same process on the other side. Now to separate the thigh from the leg, slice around the center of it to expose the joint. Then simply break it in half to separate it and then slice right through it. For the breast, I want to leave the drum in, so slice right between the flat and the drum. It will cut through with ease. Boom! Fabricated chicken in under a minute. You got this. For the leftover chicken carcass, and this is why I prefer to use a whole chicken, I pop it in a bag and put it in the freezer until I've got 7 or 8, which is plenty to make a homemade chicken stock, which is always going to be better than anything you can get from the store, and for virtually little to no money. So save your dollars and start fabricating your own chickens. It's worth it. But if you want, you can absolutely use already fabricated prepackaged thighs and legs, no problem at all. I'll say it again. Dark meat has way more flavor and will make this better. Just be sure it's skin on because we're going to crisp it up. But first, whatever you decide, transfer the chicken over to a 13x9 dish. Next, we're going to pat it dry on all sides with a paper towel, which I know seems ridiculous, but it will actually help the marinade adhere to it more. And then pour the marinade all over it and massage in those ingredients into the chicken for a minute or so, then cover it in plastic wrap. And another option would be to pour the marinade over the chicken in a plastic zip bag. Both work fine and it's up to you. But either way, it's going in the fridge for 12 and up to 48 hours. The longer the marinade, the more delicious it will be. This is the second technique you need to do to make sure the chicken is more delicious. And when you're ready to cook it, let's pull it out of the fridge. Looks awesome, and I already know it's going to be amazing because it smells fantastic and we haven't even cooked a thing yet. And now to cook it. You need the chicken to be spread out so that it will roast and not steam. So I prefer to use a rondo, which has a huge surface area. However, a roasting pan or casserole dish will absolutely work as long as it's not overcrowded. Okay, Dr. Chef Billy Parisi time. Let's take the chicken out and spread it out across the pan, leaving about an inch in between each piece. Then pour that marinade all over the top and get every little bit. Like I said, we're going to need that for later, and I'll tell you why in just a bit. But first, add on the lid and place it in the top third of your oven at 425 degrees Fahrenheit, no convection, and cook it for 45 minutes. Now, if you're using a roasting pan or casserole dish, spread out your chicken and marinade, cover it in foil, and put it in the same position at the same temp in the oven for the same amount of time. Now about the history of this Greek chicken. This is a dish that has been around for generations and is definitely a culinary tradition in Greece, as you'll see it served at gatherings, festivals, and family get-togethers. With its classic Mediterranean ingredients of fresh herbs, lemons, chicken, and potatoes, this is a meal that screams comfort and family. And my guess is this one is never going away. For now, let's make crispier, better potatoes. Traditionally, in this dish, the chicken and potatoes are cooked together, but the potatoes easily become waterlogged, mushy, and don't brown all that well. So here's what I'm going to do. Let's start by peeling 3 pounds of large-size Yukon Gold potatoes. Yes, russets or red potatoes will also work. Then, what I'm going to do is slice them in half and then into wedges. These cuts do not need to be perfect in any way, and you can feel free to cut them how you want as long as they are on the bigger side. Now, to ensure we get these nice and browned up, I'm just going to roughly dry them off with paper towels. A flour sack towel also works great here. Then, let's transfer them over to a large bowl. We are just about ready to roast these up, but first my 45 minutes is up on the chicken. So let's remove the lid if you're cooking it in a pot, or foil if it's in a pan, and cook it uncovered for 35 to 40 minutes more to really brown up that skin. Now for the potatoes. Bring them over to the cooktop, and I'm going to be cooking them in a large 12-inch ceramic coated skillet. Drizzle in enough olive oil just to cover the bottom of the pan and then crank the heat up to high. Once it begins to lightly smoke, add in the potatoes and spread them out as best you can. Leave them untouched for 3 to 4 minutes. This will help the browning, crisping process for these potatoes. Then we'll come back and give it a few flips so that we can get these covered in that coveted Maillard crust. Potatoes take on a completely different, more delicious flavor when you do this. Okay, let it sit for 3 to 4 more minutes, then gently season with salt and pepper. Toss it together and in the oven under the chicken, and we're going to cook these for 20 minutes. But you need to come back after 10 minutes to give them a few flips. Again, even browning and cooking is key here. And we are just about done, but I'm sorry, I want to add a few quick things to the potatoes. I'm going to finely grate 3 cloves of garlic really quick. I swear I'm done. Let's bring out the potatoes. They look awesome. Let's add in the garlic and 1 to 1.5 teaspoons of dry oregano. Give it a few tosses. The oil and potatoes are plenty hot to cook the garlic through, which is why I'm doing it at the end. Okay, set them to the side and break out the chicken, and yeah, the smells alone will make you a legend, guaranteed. Set the chicken to the side. Now for all that leftover goodness in the pan, this is why we want it as much as possible. And now to make the chicken even more flavorful, my third technique is to turn the heat up to medium. If you did this in a casserole dish, just transfer it over to a pot. Let's whisk in 1 cup of good chicken stock and cook it for 4 to 5 minutes to reduce and concentrate the flavors. We're almost done. It should become nice and thick like this. Now we're almost done, but first let's ruffle some Greek feathers by stirring in 1 tablespoon of unsalted butter. Sorry, this is proper cooking and how you should finish every sauce you make. It will make it that much better. Finally, let's plate this beauty up by loading up a large plate or platter with the potatoes and then the chicken. Then, drizzle that ridiculously delicious sauce all over the top. And finally, optionally, add on a few lemon slices for a punch more of citrus and then some fresh oregano leaves. Let's go!
The ingredients are simple, but when you pair them with the right cooking techniques, this literally becomes comfort food magic. Trust me, if you make it, you'll see what I mean. And if you love big, bold chicken flavors, don't miss my chicken cacciatore. I've got a great video that you don't want to miss. I'll see you there. Oh, so good.